In a world where media tears down fathers, one podcast will save all men. This is the Manspace. Welcome to the Manspace podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter.
Welcome, space officers.
Oh, officers. Everyone has been promoted without any sort of conversation with the leadership of the Manspace.
Well,
Now we're all officers. We're not welcoming the general.
That's the post-episode 100 bump.
Yeah, see?
If you've made it this
If
far,
you've
you're an
made it
officer.
this far, you're a space. For the rest of you, welcome, space cadets.
Tell you guys about this. This is my favorite thing, and I still have this drawing saved. I asked this one client, tell me what you want from therapy. He's like, all right, well, let me think about that. He came back the next week with a picture of a dude standing on top of the world with his shirt off, holding guns in the air. And it says King of Space. And he says, I want that.
Did he draw it?
He drew it.
Oh,
It was
that's
the most
so awesome.
It was the most amazing thing ever. I was like, I'm going to write a book called King of Space. So, spacemen, whoever our top listener is, we could declare King of Space.
And the worst
It's
will
me.
be the Rear Admiral.
Wait, didn't we already make you the Rear Admiral?
Yeah.
I hope not. Why would I be the Rear Admiral?
I think you wouldn't make you Rear Admiral. We made you Admiral because I was captain and Mike was. What would it make you?
What does the Admiral even do?
That's like the general in Navy terms, right?
So what's the
Yeah, I
Rear
think so.
Admiral do?
It's
It's the guy who
He's
makes the
got-
corn dogs in the back of the ship?
I got promoted. I just make corn dogs now.
But you're an admiral. Well, I'm a rear admiral.
Getting corn dogged in the back of the ship. Boy,
We're off to a real productive start today.
I know. And Robbie's going to think this isn't legit. He's going to want to edit it out.
I know.
He doesn't know that our space cadets love to explore space with us.
Our
Are we
space
putting him out
officers.
there as like our behind-the-scenes guy now?
So far, he's
It kind of just
Yes.
sounds like a teenage version of you.
he's not
Rob
teenage
is-
though. He's
Rob-
like
No,
that's just
30.
it.
No, I
He's
know.
3.
But it's like Robbie's like your alter ego that edits all these episodes.
I just found a way to put myself on the payroll to pay myself. Robbie, he's real. I promise. He's my girlfriend in Canada. You just haven't met him, George Glass. So, Mike, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about media, and we're talking about specifically fathers in media, men in media. And I will say, after my brief interactions with some of my siblings last night, and your wife actually,
Did you ask this question?
I did.
She's like, "Did you get this text from Mike?" I was like, "What text from Mike?"
No, yeah, you didn't, because we're playing a game today.
Oh, fun!
At least for a little bit.
I'm going to turn it into forever. Go ahead.
Go. That's fine. The more I interact with people, I thought, oh, maybe we're not portrayed as poorly as we think we are. Where I kind of wonder if that has, which we'll get into this in a few minutes, but well, no, we'll get into it now. Because this serves as our introduction, right? So, and for me, the bit I always think of is the bit by Brian Regan, where he talks about how men are portrayed as just complete morons in commercials.
Yeah,
You
we
know,
are.
is it good for me? That kind of thing. And so that's where and there's just this idea that we're idiots and that's how we're portrayed and that men are always portrayed that way. As I was kind of reading through some articles and interacting with some people, I thought, I don't know if it always is that way as much as that's just the part we focus on. Like, I'm not sure. And I'll share with some of the results of a study that was done 15 something years ago.
A teaser where the reward is statistics. You had me at something.
Stat.
You had me at stat. But so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give a father from media, mostly TV shows and movies, and you have to tell me whether that person was classified as a good father or a poor father by whoever submitted it.
Oh, so this is
Oh,
not
like whoever. This is data you collected last night while Rob was
This is
home
this is
nursing
just
himself.
me. Yeah. This is just me asking people. So we'll start with one that my daughter Macy gave us. Hopper.
Oh
from
man,
Stranger Things.
let me
It's
just say
easy.
this: my daughter's always say how much he reminds them of me,
Oh,
and how much of a compliment that is. So I'm going to say good.
yeah, I'm going to say good. I don't think anybody watched that and thought that guy's a crappy dad.
So what is it that makes him, and this was the part that was really interesting to me, actually, was her reasoning for why he was a good dad.
Okay.
So what to you guys makes him a good example of a father?
I think he is like very capable, and despite all of his personal struggles, he's like always there for people. This is something that I really like, right? He can be like both dangerous and comforting, depending on who he's dealing with and what situation it is.
He's a total package.
He is. My favorite part is when he takes Mike into the truck and locks the doors and he's like, listen.
That's what I think the thing that makes me for him is not just his interactions as a parent in that, but his consistency, period.
Yeah.
Like as a dude tells me that's the kind of dad he would be. And the fact that he sets limits and rules and they show you his like feeling of failure if I suck at this and I can't, you guys aren't following my rules, and that he has clearly a caring in there. So to me, I think he's an easy one to say, well, yeah, he's a good father.
I would add this too. I think
Bill.
there's something that I don't think we should aspire to, but for whatever reason strikes a chord with people. When you see a guy who is really trying hard to like be selfish and not care, but can't help but care.
Yeah, that's true.
He has kind of like an annoyed, like, oh, I have to deal with this, but it's like I'm fighting this part of me that is really tender and really cares, but I'm not saying it out loud all the time.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a way of proving to us that we're a good dude, because I don't want to do this, but I will because it's just a part of my nature to be good.
I say we shouldn't aspire to it because that's really like what makes the Twilight series so enticing. Apparently, like when you look at that theme of like, I could devour you and I have this part of me inside that could just like murder you, but I'm resisting it. It's so attractive.
What control.
Yeah.
All right, Mike.
So I do have, before we go to the next one, how accurate a portrayal of a father do you think Hopper is?
In the 80s? Solid.
No, like even just now, like in the guys that you interact with in your office, like you feel like, yeah, that's a pretty good like it fits with a lot of guys I know.
Not now, no. I think a lot of the things he says would like not fly at all now, which is sad to me.
Yeah, I feel like I see more fathers who maybe they're afraid to engage the way he did, and so they end up kind of either disengaging or at least appearing to disengage.
Yeah. Macy's reason for adding him to the list, by the way, was actually, you guys both brought it up, that he can be dangerous or comforting, or like he's strict, but she's like he found the good middle ground between being strict and being too relaxed, which I thought was an interesting thing for a 17-year-old to say.
Did she then say, I wish he was my dad?
No, but I heard that anyway.
You're no Hopper dad. You know who reminds me of Hopper? Matt.
I was him for Halloween.
Oh, see?
Got some
I
sweet
just
pictures.
can't win. All right, here's another one. Sorry, I have to go back. My sister and I were texting a lot, apparently. Oh, I like this one. Henry Jones.
Who's that?
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Oh.
Henry Jones Sr.
Played by Sean Connery.
Played by Sean Connery.
Man, that's been forever. I just saw the new one, but
I thought the new one was actually pretty good, but
new one was good, yeah.
I will say before we get to this, I'm assuming that probably what you're saying is that everyone had good portrayals, and it makes me wonder, of the people you talk to, how much we gravitate towards those things, even though they stand out more because media may make us look like buffoons, but we all want those things in our lives. That's just a side note. We'll get to that part.
Well, and that's studies kind of lean that direction too. But no, I did ask for good and poor examples. So I have. So
I'm guessing this was Marianne.
Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah. Okay. So to me, I think, he was a good example. Partly because he has it's kind of interesting. I think what's interesting about Henry Jones is maybe he's a good dad now, but they talk about the strained relationship. They kind of made, alluded to that.
Indiana feeling like he was never there
Yeah.
for him, never had time for him, that his
Right.
studies mattered more than him.
Right.
Mhm.
So if you listen to that, it's a bad dad, quote unquote. Although still clearly setting an example for Indiana. We named the dog
Work
Indiana.
ethic.
But just the way they interact with each other and the caring you can see from Henry towards Indiana in the movie, and even the trust with each other that they have built. But although it's interesting about that is I see that almost more as a peer relationship than a father-son relationship. Maybe it's interesting. So I guess I'd say good, but I don't know.
But towards the end of the movie, I do think there are still those fatherly moments at the end of the movie.
Yeah, there are.
Right. Where, yes, it has shifted to peers, as all, right, typically adult relationships shift from a parent-child dynamic to more
Right.
of a peer dynamic.
Right.
So that's normal. But I think there are still those moments where, no, you can still see the father who he's become come out.
That's what I think is interesting is it does seem like in the end he's becoming the father he wanted to be when Indiana was young, but was not there for Indiana in the beginning and got lucky that Indiana turned out the way it did, which made his parenting possible now. Anyway, so I have mixed feelings on that one. Matt?
It's been so long since I've seen that movie, but I was thinking of a lot of other movies where there's like an evolution from, some version of a bad father to a good one. So I don't feel like I've seen it recently enough to be able to comment. But if everything you say is true, I would say good. At the end, like the destination was good, and clearly, like some level of like inspiration. Like at least he gave that when he was being a bad dad, right? Because
Yeah.
Indiana Jones followed in his footsteps. So
Yeah.
All right, here's another one for you. Clark Griswold.
which movie, man?
Let's go with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation,
Okay,
because
I'm
that's
gonna
the
say-
only
I'm
one
gonna say
of all
solid.
of the vacation ones that I watch.
solid good dad who just wants a good family Christmas for everybody. Works hard and sacrifices and takes his bonus Jelly of the Month club and turns it into a pool.
For everybody.
For everybody.
Yeah,
This is-
flies everybody out.
Even if I think of the other movies, even the original Vacation, he has these moments out with Russ where he's trying to connect with his son and connect. And when they're in the Christmas one where he's they're picking the Christmas tree. And sometimes, admittedly, you could look and say he's a dad who cares too much and he's trying too hard to force something, like Aubrey's lips are blue or whatever.
It's all part of the experience.
And clearly I think what's good about him is I think a lot of dads can identify with him, not to that extreme, but like I'm trying to be a good dad, but all the stupid crap that keeps happening, like someone turning the light switch on and off, or these guys are jerks and now I'm sliding my car underneath a trailer of a truck, like it's like, yeah, my anger got the best of me, but I can still come around and my motivation is still good. So I think no question he's a good dad. He's trying his guts out to be a good dad. He reminds me a lot of my father-in-law who tries his guts out to create these magical moments and experiences. And sometimes it's like, it's okay if it's not going to be magical. Not everyone's going to like it. That's okay. But he tries his guts out. And that's one of my favorite parts about Clark Griswold. He's an idiot, but he tries his guts out.
He is an idiot. And that was actually the couple of people who put him on the list. That was one of the things they pointed out. Like, to me, I think, yeah, he fits the stereotypical dad as a buffoon that has become the prevalent narrative of fathers in media. But I also think, how much leeway do we give that guy because he's trying his guts out? Because he's openly flirting with the lady at the lingerie counter.
Well,
he, in a handful of the movies, I believe, like, again, like I'm swimming at the pool and
right.
Whoops. Like, it's one of those things where I think, okay, so what kind of a dad is he being there?
Well,
Like, hey, son, it's okay as long as you don't touch.
but remember, in the scene with buying the underwear for his wife,
Which he's not buying the underwear for his wife.
but remember, he didn't even mean to. He's just slipping all over the place. It wouldn't be the Christmas Eve if the stores were any hotter than they are. So, but
Right.
yes,
but he
is,
also shows no self-restraint there.
right. He is a very good example of dads are buffoons.
Yeah.
Period. But to me, I think that doesn't make him a bad dad, especially because I think a lot of people can, if you took the ideas of what he's doing, even the dumb things, they could say, yeah, I've done that. Not like that, but I've done that. And I hope I'm still a good dad, which maybe that's the idea behind making dads look like buffoons, is that we can identify. I don't really think so. I think it's a way of, if you're from watching a commercial, it's selling some product that they're going to assume it's for women who are going to be cleaning the house or whatever. And so make dad look like an idiot, because in the end, women are the ones who,
yeah. Okay, we'll do a couple more.
This is fun.
This one showed up on a whole bunch of lists, and I feel like it'll be fairly obvious. George Bluth Sr.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy one to me. I don't know. It's always money in the banana stand. I don't know how you could. I don't think there's a point in any of those seasons. For those who don't know who George Bluth Sr. is, it's from Arrested Development. I don't know that there's anyone that I could easily point and say, there's a moment where he's a good dad. Because even when there's a time when you think he's being a good dad, 2 seconds later, you see the motivation behind it. You're like,
it's self-serving and manipulative.
Always.
Yeah.
Which is
I will say, though.
Go ahead.
His best moments are when he hires his one-armed friend to teach lessons.
Oh, I love that. And that's why
you leave a note.
See, he's trying to teach lessons. No, his is funny because it's
but
not
again,
even so
self-serving lessons.
Yeah, but it's not even so much that he looks like a buffoon. I mean, it's funny that it's light
just corrupt.
treason.
It's light treason.
But he is. He's just him and his wife both are just, the way the show portrays them at their core, selfishly motivated. Why did you ever have kids?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like terrible examples of humans.
Yeah. Like
Lucille. I love all my children equally. Earlier that day, I don't care for Job. Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that one, but I didn't even think of him because he's such a bad example as a dad.
Yeah. But at least it's like clear that that's the point. It's not like this is what all dads are like. But you can take Michael in that show, right?
Yeah,
and
that's what I was going to say.
Say the opposite.
Which is funny because someone pointed it out, and I think it's true. You can only say the opposite about Michael for the first 3 seasons. Season 4 and 5, he becomes a lot like the rest of the family. Yeah. All right.
The most important thing in life. Breakfast.
I thought you meant the things you eat. What we always said is most important. Breakfast. Family. Oh, I thought you meant the things we eat.
All right, go ahead. I love that kid. Mr. Bennet.
Oh, he was on my list of people. When you asked us, I thought he was one of the first people I thought of, which is funny, as a good dad. Even though, here's my conflict with him.
Well, no, wait, just to clarify.
Yes.
In case you are, we're talking Mr. Bennet from the novel Pride and Prejudice.
Right.
Okay. And
all its various A&E, BBC.
Yes.
Keira Knightley, Pride and Prejudice.
So
I'm particularly fond of
the Keira Knightley one the one where it was Donald Sutherland?
Yeah.
Donald Sutherland, yeah.
Sutherland, yeah.
So,
which I particularly enjoyed his portrayal.
I was going to say he's my favorite Mr. Bennet.
He was especially he does some fantastic stuff in that. And I really like that version of even though it cuts lots out, I think they capture a lot with their cinematography.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
But here's my conflict with him. I actually think in many ways, at least for I just drew a blank on her name. Lizzie, right? That's who
she's the main.
Yeah, okay. I had to make sure I wasn't thinking of one of her sisters. But at least for her, he's he connects with her. He cares deeply about her. He wants her to make her own choices. I will not force you. I will not compel you. But for the other kids, he seems a little bit checked out. I have my favorite, and I don't care about the rest of you. And I don't really do much around here. Isn't it more like
the one that
anyway.
He identifies with the most? Didn't you say?
Yeah, probably.
I'm not saying it's justified, but I think that's part of. Yeah. Like I feel the same struggle in a way. I think, but anyway, I think because I am.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm not saying I feel the same struggle, but I think he's saying I identify with you because you have a chance to get out of this whole system we've created, and I'm stuck in it, and I got to go sit in my study.
Right. And I do think because we are supposed to identify with Lizzie, we can see him as a good dad. Mm-hmm. But I have thought before, do the other kids just feel like he does not give a crap about me at all? He's totally checked out. but she has a special relationship with him, and so it redeems him. But in that context, it feels like, yeah, if I had to play, and not knowing enough, I mean, I've never actually read Pride and Prejudice because reading is for nerds. I've only seen all the various movie and TV adaptations, but I feel like unless, maybe I'd find out that he really loved and cared for all the other ones too, but I've never gotten that impression. So it feels like, it's not a great, it's like I picked my favorite and she's the one I get along with. So she gets my love. And that feels like that's not great.
Which is actually like the person who submitted it was my dad. That he said, a fun man, somewhat tolerant, openly critical of most members of his family, tried to stay out of the way as much as possible, knew his weaknesses, but tended to yield to them rather than try to better himself. And I thought, Boy, so he put him in the bad category.
That's a much better.
Yeah.
Look at that deep description. Tended to yield to his weaknesses.
Well,
this is from Mr. Bennet?
Yeah.
Okay. Ouch.
Yeah, that's true. It was like, I can't fight this battle, so see ya. Interesting. Oh, that was a good one.
So we'll just do two more. This is super fun for me, but we need to move on to other stuff. But
do we?
No, we don't. But and sorry for my siblings that listen to this if I didn't say yours.
They don't
It just
listen.
wasn't good enough to make the list.
Right? I'm sorry, guys.
I don't love you enough.
The dad from Calvin and Hobbs.
Oh. That probably came from Rick.
Print media.
It did not come from Rick, actually.
Yeah, interesting choice. Also, that
Is he
Calvin
even
and Hobbs guy.
I was
He
going to
doesn't
say
do
I
anything
haven't looked at Calvin and Hobbes since I was like in first grade. But is he even illustrated, or is he just like a little?
No, he's
comment
illustrated.
Bubble? Okay.
No, I have memories of Dad actually being illustrated. Mom, I don't remember, but no, I remember Mom.
Oh, they're both illustrated a ton.
Yeah.
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 I would say I think he's a good dad. I think it's a comic. You can only read so much
Right.
into it, but I think there's always good examples of, I don't think he would get so frustrated at Calvin did he not care so much. And even with all the crap Calvin does to him, he still keeps coming back. And they show periodically, they'll have those strips that are just like a tender moment kind of strip when I was a kid. Like, this one's boring. Calvin didn't do anything. But it's like a moment with the dad and the son that I feel like, oh, that was really, looking back now, I think they're clearly showing us, an average dad. I get so angry at my kids that I want to scream at the top of my lungs. And he often did. But then I have these moments where I just want to take care of my kid. So I think he's a good dad.
Yeah. I think one of my that's how he was classified here. One of my favorites. He said, "This is what he said." Also, not afraid to lie to Calvin for his own amusement. Dad, where does the sun go when it sets? The sun sets in the west, in Arizona, actually, near Flagstaff.
That does make him, as a dad, it makes him much more endearing. Like, yeah, you kind of just want to have fun with your kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, like I actually think that's a great. Like I had a friend who I don't know if he actually followed through, but he goes, oh no, I'm going to tell my kids that when we turn on a light, there's a little elf or goblin or something that runs from the light switch to the light bulb and lights it up. And all I could think was, oh my gosh, please tell that to your kids. So here's the last one we'll do. Homer Simpson.
Yeah. This is like the complicated one because he's always kind of the symbol of the buffoon dad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting. And it seems like in earlier seasons, he was more just like the frustrated, like he wasn't very funny. He was just like always angry and frustrated.
Yeah.
But
that was the humor in him.
Yeah. I think his heart's in the right place, but he's very emotionally underdeveloped.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Well, this is what I think is interesting about this topic, because we could talk all day about whether or not these are good men or bad men, or good dads or bad dads. Like, I can look and see why they're good dads or why they're trying or why something, but still media shows them as like, it's kind of like, this is the best you can hope for. Look, he's such a moron, but he still cares. It's more rare. I shouldn't say very rare, but I feel like it's more rare that you'd see somebody where it's like, he's just kind of across the board, a good, classy, not buffoon, because it's not funny. And it's also makes it sometimes not engaging. It's why we like so much, why people love Breaking Bad, is because it's like, well, I can see the conflict he has. None of us are perfect, and look how not perfect he is. We want to see the non-perfection, and it's usually through men. So I agree with Matt. It's like Homer's a tricky one because he is a perfect example of how media says men are idiots, period. But we still care. So it's almost like we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. That's the part that rubs me wrong, is it's like, we all know you're an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why some of the people, I mentioned, I'll probably mention this again if we get to this, but in the TV show The Bear that I just watched again for the second time, this character, Richie, I can identify so much with him. And actually, I think from what you see of him as a dad, he's an outstanding dad. But he is a very, maybe as Matt, an emotionally immature, has a lot of crap to figure out. And he kind of, I don't want to say anything. It's good. Watch it.
Well, so that's, I think that's kind of the interesting thing is, as I started, like I read an article called Does Father Still Know Best? And they did an extensive study over portrayals of father in sitcoms in particular, right? And they stopped, like most of the studies ran through 99. I think the article was published in 2009. So, I mean, it's a fairly old article, but going back to your point, Rob, like the prevalence of the buffoon, but I think, but is it? Like Heathcliff Huxtable. Now, sure, Bill Cosby and his crap aside.
Yes,
the character of Heathcliff Huxtable.
But that actually was, and if you listen to Dave Chappelle talk about this, about the legacy of Bill Cosby, besides all the crap that he did, he says it much funnier than that. That was specifically because Bill Cosby said, I do not want this to look like a buffoon. I want this to look like a successful black man who's a good father, and I don't want any references to idiocy, essentially.
Right. But so I'm going to give you some more.
Okay.
Philip Banks.
He's an idiot. Wait.
Philip Banks?
Yeah,
what?
Well, okay.
Uncle Phil?
Okay. Hold on.
He's on my honorable mention father figures list.
Thank you.
I was thinking something else. Okay, but keep going because I'd be curious to find something out. Keep going. Do you have more?
Keaton.
Oh, okay.
Growing Pains.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Seaver.
Yeah, go more current.
Even Wonder Years.
Yeah, but go more current because you're still sticking back in the 80s where we're still coming out of Father Knows Best, and we're not.
Well, and I was going to say this about the Wonder Years. That's a perfect example of like a father-child relationship facilitated through a mother-child relationship. And those are the ones where I feel like that dad's falling short.
Yeah, that's true. But all those, I think, we're still looking at people coming out of. So, like, I think more recent. Like, for some reason, when you said Philip Banks, I thought first of Modern Family. Isn't the dad's name Phil?
Oh, Phil, yeah.
Oh, he's a moron.
Good example.
Like,
no,
so,
he's not a good
so that,
example.
but that's why I was like, he's a moron. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, current Johnny Rose, Schitt's Creek, the patriarch.
Oh, he's kind of an idiot.
No, he's not.
He totally is. He becomes a better person over time, but he's an idiot. He was successful in business, but he's a crap dad.
Yes.
But all we can see is he's successful in business. He sucked at being a family man. Over time, he becomes something different. And even that show, I think, is kind of an exception because that shows an exception across the board.
Yes, but here we'll come with another one. You'll appreciate and you won't be able to argue with it.
Oh, shoot.
But no, I think Johnny Rose, I think this is where it gets tricky because we're not talking about an example of a bad dad. We're talking about dad being portrayed as a buffoon. I don't think Johnny Rose is portrayed as a buffoon. I think he was portrayed as a bad dad. He was a bad dad.
I think
you're watching his arc to becoming a good father.
I think he has absolute buffoonery in him. That's part of this thing. Is it's like, what do you do when these rich people lose their money? They turn into idiots.
Yeah, but that's just it. I don't think he did.
I think he did.
I feel like he didn't.
But I think they quickly turned him into developing.
Sure.
But keep going. Give me another example.
Ted Lasso.
Oh, he's on my list of. He's an exception, though. That's why everyone loves Ted Lasso, and that's a brand new one. And I think hopefully we're getting away from this TV buffoonery. But that shows an exception because he there's so much hope in him as a character and who he was that we all loved it so much. Otherwise, if it was that way across the board, I think he wouldn't stand out so much like he does. But he was not a buffoon. He does some dumb things relationally. Not even bad. It's like he needs to work on how he, functions in a relationship. But no, I never thought he was a buffoon because he is one of my lists of not just because he's a good dad. He is, you can see that, even though he goes to a different country,
Right.
but because of the way he is as a man means he's likely going to be a good father. But to me, so I think, yeah, that one feels like an exception. I know. It's kind of interesting because I actually think now, current TV coming out, I think we're doing better at not showing men as buffoons, but showing men as struggling.
Mm.
So like Richie in that show, he's clearly struggling. I don't think we're playing him as idiots because I don't think it sells anymore. Too many men are like, I'm not an idiot. But I think we have a gap from like Seaver to now. It's like what's his name? You could take even King of Queens, which I guess he's not a dad, or Everybody Loves Raymond. He's an idiot. He's not, but he totally is. Now, admittedly, there's sitcoms, and so we're supposed to laugh at the stupidity.
Right.
But it does make me feel like, oh, men are always made out to be morons. Except now, I think we're seeing that men are hurting, and so most even comedies, because The Bear, which to me is hardly a comedy, but it shows the struggle of men rather than we're just idiots.
And I will say there was like one of the studies that was done, published in 2001.
So it's irrelevant. Just kidding. You can't
I know,
go past
7
5 years in
years.
your publication. Yeah.
They did notice a shift right towards the later decades where the dad started to become much more the butt of the joke, right? Through the 90s.
Yeah.
What was interesting was they did a study and they actually included like the George Lopez show, Grounded for Life, Everybody Loves Raymond, Center of the Universe, All of Us, According to Jim, Malcolm in the Middle, My Wife and Kids. So not the most recent, but not terrible, right? Like semi-current. And it was interesting because as far as like father interactions with children, it was actually like in one of them, I think it was 7 of the 9, or one of them was 8 of the 12. So 75% showed positive father interaction with the kids. Mm-hmm. Right. The dad, like one example they give from a show called Rodney, I don't even know what that is, where he's so excited he buys him a train set for his 2 boys. And his 2 boys don't get it. And it's dad just trying to get his boys to be excited about this thing and to have this, right? Because obviously for him it was a significant thing and that's the thing he's looking for. But and so it was interesting, right? The study showed that like, no, there's actually quite a few examples of positive father interactions with their kids.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but
yeah.
Even in that description, and even in a lot of the things we've said, like National Lampoons, there's always this hint of maybe they're really smart at this or this, but they're always idiots relationally. So he's doing this thing for his kids. I want to connect with my kids, but he doesn't get it. He can't see that his kids don't. So we feel it's like, oh, good for you for trying, but men are such morons relationally. Mm-hmm. And I even said that about Ted Lasso. He's got some stuff with his relationship. We always show them as like, you suck at this. Richie, who's an amazing dad, screws up his relationship. So there's always something that's like, at least that part to me, actually, this is occurring to me just now. It's like, oh yeah, we always look like dummies in relationships. We just want sex, and we can't read the room.
Yeah. So I am curious, like, who showed up on your guys' list of good fathers?
You want to go first, or do you want me to go?
You go.
I actually went a little different because
I like different.
I think the reason that my mind went here is because I like the story of who steps in when there isn't a good father figure. And I think those are some of the powerful examples in my mind. But I read a study too I read the findings and then read what shows they reviewed. And I was like, oh, well, no wonder. But it was like, I'll just read the little clip here. It says the study found fathers were positively portrayed by the media less than half the time they were on the screen. Fathers were portrayed as buffoons, making dad jokes and silly faces, acting stupid, being clumsy 39.9% of the time, in a negative light 6.7% of the time, and neutrally during 11.5% of their on-screen time. And they reviewed 2 Disney shows for tweens. I'm like, yeah, those are the ones that are like the biggest culprit of this, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Like still to this day. But
yeah.
But they broke it down into like the bumbling buffoon dad, the hyper-masculine action hero dad, and the man-child dad. But those are like the man-child ones, I think, are the ones you're talking about where there's this arc like Mrs. Doubtfire and, some other one with Ethan Hawke they cited that I hadn't seen. But But when I think of like my favorite father figures who stepped in and did what I think fathers should do, Robert Duvall and Michael Caine and Secondhand Lions. And that's a unique one because it's a story of a mom who is completely like, self-absorbed and abandons her kid.
Yeah.
Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck's character in The Tender Bar.
That one.
It's super good, man. Like he is like, when you talk about
uncle,
like
right?
being out of touch relationally, he's an uncle who is living at home still with like basically the whole family, right? But just knows how to work everybody, like knows how to be like deal with everybody and get people what they need, and super knowledgeable, is teaching his nephew, and then it's a really good portrayal. Will Smith in The Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh man, that
that's a gut-wrenching one.
Yeah.
But I mean, thinking of like, rarely do you there are a lot more depictions of single moms who do that,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
seeing a single
But
dad
to see
do that.
what dad went through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Several people from Parenthood, like really all the dads in Parenthood except for, crap, I can't remember his name. It's the guy from My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but he makes fun of his ex-wife's boyfriend. He's like, "Hey, what do you want, Captain Morgan?" And I was like, I never put it together, but he totally looks like the guy in the Captain Morgan bottle. But and then I had Uncle Phil. But I think that in most of these situations, now that I say that, actually only a few of them, I think one thing that's missing that makes a huge difference in how fathers are portrayed is a depiction of a truly like collaborative power couple. In a lot of these buffoon dad situations, the couple relationship sucks in some way. Or it's like, non-existent. And so you get a dad doing both roles in a way, right? In some of these father figure situations. But when you've got like two parents kind of holding both of those pieces together, I think, in my opinion, like that, when I think of like Parenthood, there's a lot of that, a lot of depictions of couples struggling, but also couples, and you see how it impacts the way they show up as parents, right? But then when they're solid as a couple, how they show up as parents and how they're competent in their own ways. So that was my list.
I've already mentioned a couple of mine. One of mine was Ted Lasso. One of mine was Richie. Those ones are not even necessarily because of their dad things, but because I think that the characteristics and integrity they have as men, even despite their flaws, is the kind of thing I think makes a good father. Kind of like indirectly, kind of what you're saying, Matt. Like they would step in as a good father. Mm-hmm. And actually, I would put Uncle Phil on my list because of the episodes I think of where he was very consistent.
The Why Don't You Want Me, Uncle Phil episode.
Oh my gosh,
dude. Yeah.
Even thinking about it makes me want to cry a little bit.
Uncle.
But he knew how to be there for somebody, and also how to and stepping in and taking a role that was not his to take, or it was given to him, or whatever it is. I did have Mr. Bennet because of his, like, I want to engage with you and I want you to become the person you're going to be, and I need to give you that space. One of mine was Michael Keaton and his dad in My Life.
That made someone else's list.
The whole movie, the whole basis of this movie is, I'm dying. I want to give my kids me through these videos. Yeah. And then when his dad shaves him, because he can't shave himself. Again, I'm talking about it, like, let's move on to the next thing. I think it's what draws me to them is that you weren't, kind of what Matt's saying a little earlier, you don't have to do this, but you're doing it. Mm-hmm. Which tells me there's something about you as a human that makes you, I think we all want that father figure of somebody who says, I don't have to do this, but I will do it. And actually, because to me, now that I think about this, it's the relational thing. We're always such idiots relationally that I think I appreciate times when I see, like at without giving anything away about the bear for people who want to watch it. There's a scene at the very end of season 2 where Carmi is yelling at him, like, I hate you, like you're a loser. And he keeps yelling back, I effing love you. Just keeps yelling it at him like he's being, and I was like, man, somebody who says, I'll take your crap and I'm not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So, and the more I pick these things apart, it's kind of funny because I think I could find 5 or 10 more at least that I think this is a good father. There's a good father. But what I'm finding is it's usually I see elements of things that I think make good fathers, not necessarily that they were portrayed as a good father, period. Because that's not always the case, even for people I'm mentioning. But it's elements of things that I see. And that's what I think is interesting. I actually was thinking a lot of the shows I watch, fathers are kind of a secondary character.
Mm-hmm.
They're there. And how much interaction do I actually see? Which makes me think, well, how do we see each other? How do we, how do we see dads? Do we picture them that way? There's a thing in experiential family therapy where it's called sculpting, where you ask somebody, you ask one of the family members, I want you to kind of
Position the family.
Yeah, position family, how you picture the family working. And it'll be like, mom's over here yelling at dad or this or that. And sometimes there have been cases, and I've had one like this, where dad's in the corner and everyone else is doing stuff and dad's just standing there. There's a kind of a more famous example of where they actually tell dad to leave the room. And it's like, yeah, I think sometimes we're just peripheral. And so many of the things I think of, it's like dad's there and I've seen things, but he's often a peripheral character. That's why I like My Life so much, is the whole thing is about him being a dad, even though it's to his unborn kid. Is it unborn or
it's
going
unborn.
to be born?
His wife's pregnant. He's dying of cancer.
Yeah.
So I had a couple that I think are actually pretty solid examples of dads, in as much as you see them, right? They're like, it's not the kind of story it is, but the first one is The Family Stone, Craig T. Nelson.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I freaking love Craig T. Nelson in The Family Stone. He wants to connect with each of his kids.
Right.
And even when he can see that his kid is turning himself into some version of himself that he's not, like he's like he's lost, but he still tries to connect, and he still tries to connect with his uptight fiance, and he tolerates a lot right up until a point where he's like, nope, now you've crossed the line, and I'm going to stand up for my family. Mm-hmm. And he does, and he that's it. But then he's still like the next morning, right? He's back to like, hey, I accept you. Like, bad night last night. Like, he doesn't say that, but that's and so I just think, I love that portrayal of him, right? Where he just cares for each and wants to connect with each and is forgiving of their shortcomings. Yeah. The other one, Jenner makes fun of me because this is seriously one of my favorites. It's Becca's dad from Pitch Perfect.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
Well enough.
He's not on screen a whole bunch. Like I said, he's kind of a secondary character. But there's a scene where she ends up getting arrested because destruction of property, and her not boyfriend calls her dad because he doesn't know what else to do, right? They're putting you in handcuffs. And dad says, just get in the car, Becca. And she goes, you're not even going to listen to my side? And he goes, not tonight. And it's the not tonight, right? Because inherent in that statement is, no, I'm going to listen to it. I'm just not now. I'm not in he recognizes I'm not in a place emotionally to have this conversation and have it be any kind of productive. If I engage in this conversation now, it's going to go really south. So no, just get in the car. Like, I'm going to listen to you at some point. It's just not right now. And I think, now it would be better if he actually said those things out loud. But I think the simple fact that the phrasing, right, not tonight, no, that says, yeah, I'm going to listen to you. Like, I'm not closing the door on this conversation. And then at some other point, right, she's towards the end of the movie, she's having her big emotional epiphany. She's talking with her dad and makes some comment because her parents are divorced. And some comment about how he wasn't there for her. And he goes, that's not fair. He's like, look, your mom and I didn't work. And he goes, but I have always tried since then to have a connection and a relationship with you. And it's that, like, it helps her kind of realize that she's been the one pushing him away. Like, she can see, he has been trying to connect with me all these times, and kind of pushes away. And so it's one of those where I just think it's not that he's like trying to not own his part. Like, he knows that he did things wrong. He knows that there were errors, but he's still saying, but look, like, I've been trying. So I always like that example of him. One of the things is I was looking at research that kind of stood out, and I guess I'm interested in what you guys would have to say about this. Like, as I was reading research, I started to wonder, like, how much, and it's the age old question, there's no real answer to it. How much do we think TV and media is reflective of life, and how much do we think it influences life? Right?
Do you want us to answer that?
No, that's
Oh.
actually just what I was wondering. Like, you can, but no, you don't have to.
You can, but no.
It's one of those. I don't think there's a question, right? Like, certainly you can say, like, one of the studies talked about how as the family dynamic shifted, you started to see different portrayals in TV, right? So I think, right, to an extent, and certainly I think the people who write these characters, lots of them are writing off their own experience. And so certainly it's reflective of their life. And a lot of it is going to be played up for comedy, because that's the point of a sitcom. You play it up for comedy.
But it's also reflective of their perspective, not necessarily reality.
Exactly. And we are going to be influenced by what we watch. Like, to me, I think it's naive to argue that we can watch and expose ourselves to these different stories over and over and over again and not have it impact us. And so for me, as I thought, yeah, knowing that you're going to be exposed to it, and as much as I hate to say what I'm about to say, do what Rob has been talking about.
Yes.
Which is kind of identify in those characters, hey, what is it in this guy that I think is a positive redeeming trait that I want to incorporate into how I parent, or into how I am in a relationship, right? Or even just, what's the thing I don't want to do? Like, Homer Simpson's got anger problems. Well, I don't want to be that guy. Or Clark Griswold is easily distracted by women's lingerie. Okay, I'm not going to be that guy either. But no, I'm curious, what do you guys see as today's takeaways? That's the thing I'm curious on. This is where we'll end. It's whatever you guys see as our takeaways.
I think one of them is what you're saying there. Like, it's media. You're never going to get a perfect example, nor will you get one in real life. Like, even your own dad, however amazing he may be, you still have to put your own dad in context, because you're going to hope your kids are going to do the same thing for you. So hopefully my kids will take the things that's like, this was meaningful to me, and as they get older, they'll understand why I failed in these other areas. But I think there are examples all over the place, which is why last episode I was giving, my resources for men were like, just go watch TV, because it felt like they're all over the place if you want to look for them. If you know how to identify, if you can pull out those things that feel like, I want this in my life. The second part to me is the takeaway is like, I guess it's always this, well, there's two takeaways. Sorry. A third takeaway. It always feels like, hey, don't buy this. Like, you are not a moron. Like,
No.
You know more relationally than you think you do. Don't walk around thinking, don't perpetuate and buy into this idea. It's like, well, I don't know. I mean, relationships are kind of women's thing. I'm just here for the sex, or, it's like, don't perpetuate that idea. You yourself, and teach your son specifically to be better in relationships. The third one was, last episode, I actually had a listener reach out and say, hey, here's a couple more resources, nonfiction, that I really liked, that are excellent examples of men who are not necessarily masculine. Like he mentioned, Lincoln and Grant were not necessarily like the typical masculine dude, but they're excellent examples of men. And my third takeaway was, go to our TikTok. There's 2 videos there now. 2.
Are they both of you?
Yes, they're both of me. And this third one will also be of me. Look, there's no
You can't get to the end of that sentence without insulting Matt and I, or seriously just praising yourself. So,
well, here's the insult: is I told you guys both, watch through your things and pull me out clips that you want me to submit or to upload. And did you guys? No. So
I don't
who got
remember
uploaded?
that conversation.
It was long before I uploaded the very first one. The second one was Robbie's doing. It's not my fault. I'm his favorite uncle. So
that hurts, Robbie.
But when my friends, is that Robbie me or Robbie? So when this listener kind of commented and said, here's these things, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be awesome to have, I want interaction with this sort of thing. I'm always trying to figure out how to get interaction around this. And I would love to start like a Manspace book club / movie club, where we pick like a movie of the week or a book of the month or whatever, and we then interact socially, stupid social media on it. But what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to go on and make tonight next week, because this will post next week, is I'm going to go make a TikTok asking for feedback on good dad, bad dad. Tell me in your perception of media, what was a good dad, what was a bad dad, and why? Because I want interaction, because this kind of stuff, I think that when people say, hey, I thought about this too, I think, yeah, because this is the whole reason we started this. We want to be able to talk about this with other dudes, because we don't have anywhere to talk about it. So I guess it's going to be on TikTok. Thank you, Saint TikTok. That's my last takeaway. Matt?
I would say, like, talk to your kids about what they're seeing, what their thoughts are. You know, as you're watching a dad on there, like, how are they feeling towards that dad? And is that, you know, do they have thoughts and feelings about it? And do they feel like they can tell you? That's kind of like you, Dad, even if it's bad, right? Because you could get good feedback, I think, either way. I remember, I don't know if she would still say this, but when my oldest daughter was probably like 3rd or 4th grade, maybe 5th grade, she and my wife were shopping for clothes, and there was some shirt, I can't remember what it said, but it was like some kind of disparaging comment about dads. I don't remember what it was now, but it was kind of like painting dads as buffoons, basically. And she was like, why is that shirt a thing, basically? And she was kind of like, that's not how I feel towards my dad. I wouldn't wear that. So again, she'd probably wear that shirt proudly now. I don't know, but I think the conversation where it really matters, like on a societal level, sure, great, but like in your own home, what's the perception of a dad? And if it's a good one, they're probably going to be viewing some of these examples we've talked about, the negative ones, accurately. Like, hey, that's not a fair portrayal of the dad I know. If it's very accurate for them, then we can't really complain that dads are portrayed that way on media, you know, in the media, if we're that way at home. So I think just listen to the voices around you that actually matter the most.
Good one. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Like, deeply. So, spacemen, catch us next time on the Manspace. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man in the moon. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Please remember to
Rate
and
review.
please, we desperately need it.